They surf, they skate, they are awesome, totally rad, and more than likely, bodacious. Ski and Nick love to surf, whilst Neil and Carla love to skate. But they share a house here in Cornwall, and a common concern. Is their passion for the great outdoors having an ill effect on their health? Is life on 4 wheels in the 7 seas leaving them hanging 10 for bad bugs and bacteria? With only 48 hours to find out, there's only one team to call, and that's us. Grime Scene Investigation. Party on. Each week on Grime Scene Investigation, we offer out the unseen world of bugs and bacteria, then punch our weight with the microscopic marauders plaguing households across the country. Using cutting-edge technology, we're out to get the germs and microorganisms living with and on our suspects. Our mission? To identify the dirtiest offender, aka the criminal. The team's led by me, Rufus Hound. The Samson behind me in the lab coat is Dr. Anthony Hilton. Yes, one of the country's leading microbiologists. This fella with the beard, Papa John Critchell. He looks for critters the human eye can't see. Whilst the girls who do the dirty work are Jess, Laura, and Taria. Anthony's research team, the Antoinettes. And this is our home, a mobile lab packed full of kit normally only found in the world's top research laboratories. Oh yeah. This week, it's Newquay. Our mission? To investigate a fearless foursome of skaters and surfers. They live for the thrills and spills of the surf and streets, and they have the scars to prove it. But could their love of the fast life have some serious consequences for their health? With so many cuts and bruises over the last few months, this lot may as well have given serious illnesses like septicemia and MRSA a ring and told them to come round for a boozy do. And it's not just the great outdoors that's putting them in the firing line. Their shared house has been wiped out by a life of constant boarding and partying, leaving it a pathogen's paradise. So, is their lust for life putting them on a highway to hospital? Which one's the criminal? We're here to find out.
Day 1, 0900 hours. Investigation commences.
Hello, Rufus Hound, Grime Scene Investigation. I'm looking for Nick. Right, Neil. Good. Carla. And you must be Ski. Come on, let's get you out of here. Anthony, secure the area.
Jess, you do the front room. Laura, upstairs to the bedrooms. Tara, you and I do the kitchen.
Hold it.
So let's be absolutely clear on this. Who are the skaters? Who are the surfers? Skaters in the middle, surfers at either end. So as surfers, what are you coming into contact with?
Well, obviously, just being in the sea. It's packed full of...
Especially after a hard day's rain when there hasn't been any for a while and everything gets washed off the streets and the mountainsides and everything.
So your concerns are more what's being washed from the land into the sea?
0930. Samples taken from Ski's bedroom.
I mean, do you come down with stuff a lot? Are you unwell much?
Ears. My ears. I've got my right ear. We call it surface ear. I'm not sure what the actual professional term for it is, but pretty much your ear just blocks up.
Crustiness of the ear.
Anything else we should be aware of?
Sore throats once or twice a year.
So you guys are worried about what rolls off the streets. You guys are actually on the streets. What do you find you're worried about?
You're always rolling about on the floor.
Right.
It just happens. So you're likely to roll in the nastiest stuff you can imagine. There's certain spots you go to, like around here, there's only really the fly cellars when it rains. That's where the fishermen mend their nets and the tramps eat sleepy poo. So you kind of sort of share your environment with some unsavoury types.
Now, is that enough to make you think, well, hang on, let's just stick to the official skate parks?
No, that's not what skating's about, is it?
It's not what it's about.
It's just about skating terrain.
Terrain and through human excretion.
0942, Nick's bedroom.
I fell one time outside of a pub, cut my hand, and developed some good blood poisoning from that.
Really?
Big black veins up to my arm and sort of encroaching on my neck before I got to the hospital. So I didn't actually realise that's what it was.
0953, Neil's bedroom.
Who do you yourselves think is going to prove to maybe bring in the nastier stuff into the house? Surfers or skaters?
It's gotta be, isn't it?
You think it's yourselves?
It's the obvious one, isn't it? You know, who's been rolling around on the floor in amongst all the
salt water.
detritus of society? Me.
So you're willing to admit you're probably the criminal?
Well, you know, when you think about it logically, you just think of me, don't you? You know.
I always do. Sometimes I'm just alone in the hotel. Well, you guys clearly don't think it's going to change very much at all, but let's see, because the next step is to get up close and personal. We're going to be swabbing you like a 2-day-old poop deck.
Okay, Ski, we're going to take some body samples from you. What do you think are the problem areas that you would like us to have a look at as a surfer?
I won't say genitalia.
So what kind of symptoms do you have when your ears?
I went surfing one day and I went to bed that night with a bit of a sore ear. Woke up the next day, couldn't hear anything for 2 days.
Surfer's ear. Nice. Nick's regular exposure to cold water is constricting his ear canal, increasing the chances of serious bacterial infection. Left untreated, it can lead to permanent deafness.
What kind of areas do you think we might find things on your body?
Hands, elbows, knees.
It's quite odd, but I quite like having my feet massaged.
Really?
This is quite nice.
Not every day you probably have your foot put in a bag and massage around. Yeah, I imagine.
Investigational footbag foreplay? Yeah, but it's all legit, as we need the facts and fast if we're going to stop Neil and Carla dropping into a half-pipe of death. Rolling around with broken skin on the dirty ground means they're flirting with septicemia, a potentially life-threatening form of blood poisoning. But even common bacteria on the body like Staphylococcus could get into any nicks or graces they pick up outdoors, and in large enough amounts could trigger dangerous infections known as bacteremia. As well as dealing with everything that Mother Earth has to throw at them, Nick and Ski face a whole armada of aquatic bugs and nasties from Daddy Ocean. Their eyes and ears are a special concern. Tiny fingers are now pointing to some serious microorganic activity on and around our suspects. So, whilst Anthony takes samples from the sea and the skaters' favourite hotspots, I'm going to get to work on taking some dirty pictures.
Now it's time to get even more up close and personal. It's the body scan. Ski, get in there.
Our biggest concern is that the group's collection of cuts and sores, whilst unquestionably gnarly, are also a bacterial hazard the size of the Grand Canyon. To a microbe, even the smallest breach in the skin is an on-ramp to the bloodstream's cellular superhighway. The sheer volume of wounds on our banged-up foursome means that they're under a permanently high risk of a microbiological invasion. These four are operating a teeny tiny code red. Awoo! Awoo! The surfers and skaters live hard and play harder, leaving little time for domestic chores. So could their unclean kitchen be harbouring bugs, hell-bent on getting into their grazes and gashes? Anthony thinks so.
I don't know, look at this. It looks pretty clean, but I reckon you should take a swab. You got one?
Yeah. This is my favourite bit of kit.
This must-have gadget will show us how radical their hygiene really is.
Swab it down.
It looks clean, doesn't it? But this test hopefully will show us the dirt that we can't really see.
So we're looking a bit mucky on then. Can I bang the end?
I know you
This is my favourite bit. Right. So for a normal home chopping board, we're looking at something, what, in the low hundreds, hopefully?
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, we see what we can find. But normally a couple of hundred would be acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's have a check.
Whoa! 11,399. That's a little higher than we would like.
Yeah, it shows there's a lot of dirt on here that we can't see. It's not been cleaned very properly, even though it looks visually clean, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think we'll have our sandwiches on it.
No. or lick it for fun.
Another concern is the fridge. Using our laser thermometer, it's clear that this is one part of the house that's anything but cool.
So the fridge then?
Yeah, what a nightmare, look at this. These bananas here at 13.6 degrees. This fridge should be less than 8 degrees, I just don't know what's going on here.
What have we got there? Corn burgers?
Yeah, look at those. 17.4 degrees.
Yeah.
You might as well leave them outside at that temperature.
Yeah, meat underneath those as well.
Yeah, you should have the meat down the bottom. It's going to be dripping juices on salads and things. It's not good. It's an accident waiting to happen, this thing.
With conditions in the fridge of bacterial butlins, these housemates risk not only the delights of food poisoning, but also possible infection of their fun wounds.
Never mind dinner, they may as well just smear themselves with disease and book themselves into A&E.
While Carla hits the half pipe, we've asked the boys to sling together some lunch so we can see if they're throwing more than just another shrimp on the barbie. In order to shed a little light on things, we've raided the Grime Scene Dirty Tricks department.
So, this is the sting. Their chicken is covered in UV dye. It's the same stuff they use when someone's got their hand in the till, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. That dye is going to glow when we shine UV light on it, and all the hands and everywhere this touch will shine as well, that's right. You know, he's getting his hands really into that chicken there, so his hands are going to be covered in it. And your next thing you want to do is probably wash his hands, so all the taps should be full of it. But if he doesn't wash them properly, it could be on the cupboards, everywhere. On that chopping board he's handling there.
He's gone for the cold tap. Muppet.
Yeah,
That's
right.
not a good sign.
No, not really. If they're going to make it effectively clean, they need hot water.
Now, Ski should be alright in all of this. He's preparing his own vegetables, going nowhere near the chicken.
Yeah, that's right. But the idea is here that he doesn't necessarily need to touch the chicken. If he touches somewhere where the other guys have touched, then we should get some nice cross-contamination.
Right, look, they're sitting down to eat. I mean, I want to teach them a lesson and everything, but I think poisoning's probably going a bit far. Right, we better get in there. Fellas, put the chicken away. Don't eat that. I've got something rather worrying to show you. Can you go inside, please?
Yeah.
Quickly, now, go. Haven't got all day, let's move. Drinking already, nice touch. Right, Anthony, do you want to tell them?
Yep, I think we will. First of all, I need to put some of these on.
They might resemble Latvian disco goggles, but these UV specs will show the boys just where their marinated mitts have been.
Well, your humble chicken wasn't merely chicken. We covered it in something called UV dye. And with these glasses, we're going to see just where possible contamination from your chicken has been in your kitchen.
Oh, yeah, there we go, see? We've got some pretty grimy evidence here of hands that haven't been washed after handling the raw meat.
With their kitchen looking like a cheap Busta Rhymes video, it's bad news for the boys, who seem to have got our marinade on just about every surface possible.
I don't remember seeing any chicken being prepared here. So this is just where your hands have been since touching the chicken.
Again, you can see just on the edge of there.
Well, whatever your opinion on vegetarianism, there's a good chance that at least some of the contamination of the chicken would have wiped off on the veggie stuff.
Yeah, look at that.
Plenty of handprints knocking around here. Right, so you were nowhere near this stuff. This was going to be your food. What do we reckon? Anthony, did it have anything on it?
Should we take a look?
Yeah.
Let's put it on here and see.
Open wounds on the body can be a shortcut for bugs that thrive on meat, like salmonella, to get directly into the bloodstream where they can wreak bacterial havoc.
Now, Ski, you made all these vegetable kebabs for you yourself, and yet they still got contaminated with their dirty meat germs. How does that make you feel?
A bit odd, really. I don't understand how it could happen.
Yeah.
I made all these in advance, and I guess they were around the work surface, but
I do feel a little guilty.
that kind of sucks.
Because he's a vegetarian. I mean, if it was another meat eater, you wouldn't really care as much.
It's just amazing to think that we only literally prepped the chicken up here and just how many different places it's got to around the room in such a small period of time.
Yeah.
And how everyone else is going to touch where that's been touched, it's just going to spread.
So we've swabbed them, we've scanned them. now I guess we've just got to find out what they got growing on them.
That's right, yeah. We've got the colonies. I thought we'd do a few APIs, do a bit of biochemical profiling, see what we can do.
Yeah, so we take the bacteria off them, we give it a scrape, we dissolve it down, then this little strip tells us what they got.
These high-tech strips taste a rainbow of fruit flavours to give a highly accurate analysis of any creatures present.
So, we've got to get through all of these. What have we got? Carla's right hand, Nick's right foot. This is going to take ages.
Well, we could always get the girls to do it.
Pub's still open.
Brilliant.
Girls!
Whilst me and Anthony discuss the finer points of microbiology, Jess, Laura and Taria work the evidence. If our suspicions are right, tomorrow could prove a rough ride for the gang.
I slightly feel like I'm sort of living in a laboratory at the moment.
The water off my feet was filthy. It was good dark brown, which is
I think it's
what
healthy.
I like to see. Yeah, definitely. You don't want to have pristine feet. You'd be a weirdo.
I'm washing my hands every time I go to the toilet. Not that I don't anyway. But things like that, just... And like you do sort of slightly wonder what they've picked up in this room.
Yeah, they swapped the room.
Remarkably, the seawater samples tested clean, but there's no shortage of contaminants on our suspects' bodies and in their house, where they seem to be growing their very own Eden project.
So, beginning of day 2, what are the results?
I'm just having a look through the plates, actually. I'm looking at these, look at that, for Nick's foot, there's a whole lot going on there, isn't there, really?
Yeah.
What's a little more concerning is on this VRBG plate, we've got some colonies. The big ones are Pseudomonas, I'm not too worried about those, but I put one of the red colonies through the API and it's come out as E. coli.
E. coli on his foot?
Yeah, that's right. You'd normally expect that in faeces, wouldn't you?
Yeah, not on the soles of your feet.
But from the soles of their feet, potentially lethal E. coli has infected the house, even finding its way into their fridge.
They've got E. coli on them. What about around them?
Well, the main place we had a look at in the front room was the sofa. There's got quite a lot of bugs going on the sofa there. But look at this fungal plate that I've got here. Have you ever seen trichoderma growing on a sofa?
That's a soil thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Trichoderma. More hard evidence that these four are transplanting the ecosystem outdoors into their indoors.
What about the kitchen?
Yeah, well, look at the fridge. When we had a look in the fridge, look at all those bugs we got from the fridge.
Well, you said yourself it was far too warm. It's not killing half the stuff that it should.
No, that's right.
This isn't looking good for them.
Not really.
Is that Aspergillus?
It is. Look at that. Aspergillus niger, we got that off the wall in the hallway.
That's farmer's lung.
It can.
Of course, farmer's lung.
Yeah.
Aspergillus. Not a good sign if you're fond of your respiratory system. This fungus has been dragged in on damp wetsuits, exposing the whole house to the risk of permanent lung damage.
Right, so they've got Aspergillus niger, E. coli, growth happening all over the fridge. This isn't really looking very good for them at all.
No.
Right, I'm going to go and see Papa John. If I can get him to turn down that music, then we've got to call these guys in, because this is not looking good at all.
Okay, see you later.
Yeah.
We are the antidote, and it's a road. The one away between we don't listen to. We are the antidote, and it's a sound. You can hear me just by looking at my mouth. We are the antidote.
Papa John Critchell. Eyes like a hawk and a machine to match.
So, John, what have we got?
Hi, Rufus. Well, we've hunted through some of...
Don't say dust mites, don't say dust mites, don't say dust mites.
Found dust mites as we were expecting.
Evil dust mites?
But so far, nothing particularly nasty.
No, I mean, these...
Right, yeah, just dust mites then.
I guess, but...
So maybe a few more than we'd like to see, but nothing...
No, nothing.
Nothing tropical.
Nothing tropical, no.
No, nothing tropical. We've got a specially flown in Japanese scanning electron microscope. All we found is dust mites. Yeah, it's great, that one there. Look at it. Yeah, brilliant.
Right, John, I'll let you get back to it.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
So, Papa J has given these guys the all clear, but things on six legs aren't the problem for this lot. The evidence is piling up like a bachelor's laundry. All four of the group are running a dangerously high risk of illness or infection. But with this level of contamination, finding a single serial offender is proving more difficult than even we had thought. While the Antoinettes recheck the grime scene, Anthony's gone back for heavy artillery. This UV light source is used by FBI forensic scientists on murder scenes. But it's going to show us something so sickening, you better pray you've had your dinner.
So, what are we finding, Anthony?
Well, I'm a bit worried about this, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah. I think this sink's not only an ashtray, but maybe his ensuite facilities as well.
Really?
Yeah.
So he's having a diddle in his sink. Is that what's most concerning about this?
Well, I think so. Why don't you come and have a look?
Okay. So what are we seeing?
Can you see this fluorescence here, this light-coloured reflection?
Yeah.
Well, that, with using this device, that's probably urine, I think, or maybe some other bodily fluids down there as well, but I don't know. I've never seen a sink like this.
Really?
Oh, if this was in a sort of a food preparation, or I wouldn't wash my hands in there, would you?
Well, I'm not keen.
No. I think this is another nail in the coffin, to be honest with you.
Ski, done away. It's not looking good for he.
Even though it's largely sterile, waste nutrients in urine can act as a food source for bugs living in the sink itself, feeding any number of disease-carrying organisms. From Streptococcus to Pseudomonas, there's a bug version of Fight Club going on in Ski's basin. And the first rule of Fight Club? Don't talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club? Stop peeing in your sink, you Antipodean stinker! Evidence processed. We know that these four have enough cuts and grazes to give microorganisms an open invitation to make them sick. Time to show them the proof. First under the microscope, skaters Neil and Carla.
When you're skating, obviously very physical activity, you might fall off and pick up even small bumps and bruises. But if you break the skin at all, then microorganisms can get into those cuts. And I suppose if you're skating in areas which you're slightly worried about how clean they are, then you can get those infected.
Generally, you wouldn't bother to clean it out that well. Certainly if you just had a little one, and they're ones that tend to sort of itch for a while, maybe, you know, go a little bit wrong.
Manky.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably even small cuts can get quite bad and get progressively worse, so it's probably a good idea, even on small cuts, if you put a little bit of sort of antiseptic cream on, or make sure you give them a good wash just to make sure they don't get any worse.
Yeah, we don't really have a first aid kit, do we? So
Yeah,
that would be a good move.
Next up, Surfer Nick.
There were a special concern for you. The ear.
The problem with surfer's ear is that the cold weather, eventually over a period of time of exposure to cold, the ear canal starts to constrict and get thinner and slightly smaller. And as a result of that, any microorganisms going in your ear canal from the water, for example, then they're more likely to stay there, and that's what causes them to to block and cause an infection.
Went surfing just this morning, just from the cold wind, any kind of cold weather, cold air blowing in my ears nowadays is gives me the worst earache instantly. It's a horrid thing.
Have you considered wearing earplugs at all?
I tend to stick blue tack in there because it's quite nice and pliable.
Yeah.
Or even a hood in midwinter. But
You could try reverse evolving yourself, but
just keep going harder at it.
makes it very hard to balance on the actual board itself. We've got his gills and fins.
Lastly, Crocodile done ski.
Finally then, Ski, let's have a look at what HQ reckons is one of your core areas of concern. Feet, by the looks of things.
Your skin is a fabulous barrier at keeping microorganisms out of your body, so to speak. And once it gets breached by cracking or by any kind of cuts and grazes, you're leaving yourself more susceptible to an infection. And obviously, if you've got an infection in your foot, then you wouldn't be able to surf for a while if it was very sore. So it's best to try and
foot.
Well, at worst circumstances, possibly. Yeah.
Four extreme contenders, but which one's getting fingered? Is it Nick? A serial cross-contaminator and victim of surfer's ear. If he isn't careful, his favourite word will become pardon. Carla, hands filthier than Chubby Brown's joke book and covered in high-risk skating cuts and scrapes. Neil, nearly lost an arm to blood poisoning and left the kitchen so fluorescent it's now visible from France. Or Ski, feet covered in bacterial contamination and he wheezes where he sleeps. It's time to reveal which one's the criminal.
So, having swabbed you, scanned you, looked at where you've been and where you live, we were able to determine who was the criminal. Skaters, you were clearly worried about it, rolling around outside all the time. It was neither of you. Yes. That brought us down to Nick and Ski. Nick, we know that we found E. coli underfoot on you, but also, Ski, we made a rather interesting discovery, didn't we?
We did. We have a very powerful scope called the UV crime scope, which causes certain bodily fluids to fluoresce. And I think we've got evidence to suggest that you may be using your... Yes. Well, when you're peeing down the sink, the organisms that live in your plug hole and around the sink, they will eventually use that is there and start to grow and thrive. So when we swabbed your sink, it was very, very heavily contaminated, because essentially the microorganisms are getting a healthy input of nutrients every night.
So, unsurprisingly, of the four of you, sometimes a racial, almost xenophobic stereotype to call Australians criminals, but in this case, it's very much true that Ski, you are the criminal. So the truth is uncovered. We know now what's going on in and around your house, and with you four friends. Ski, what will you take away from all of this?
Apart from a bit more understanding about what's in the environment around us, I will look after small cuts. I mean, can be just as detrimental than large cuts from getting infection from. So I'll look in my cracks and crevices a bit more, and probably not piss in my sink so often.
In terms of my ears, I'm really going to try and start to look after them more, because it's just going to get worse and worse otherwise.
Definitely going to buy some antiseptic cream for sort of scabs and cuts and bruises.
Probably going to stop leaving my boards on the surfaces, and loving memories.
Well, if we can leave you only with loving memories, I think we'd both be more than happy about that. And of course, the funerals we could attend as friends from your massive blood infections. For these four, life is all about freedom. Part of that freedom is taking risks. I mean, a really edgy bit of calligraphy or extreme brass rubbing just isn't going to cut it. But septic shock, lung damage, permanent deafness all seem like a rather high price to pay for a bit of plank-based sporting endeavour. Hopefully, though, over the last couple of days, we've shown them enough that will keep them totally sick and not totally sick. It's another Grime Scene Investigation case closed. Now a message to my boy Tony Hawk. Tony, I'm coming for you. Extreme.